the Australian record label behind Kylie Minogue. Jimmy Barnes and Vance Joy says it is reducing spending and signing fewer new Aussie artists each year as streaming and TikTok make it harder for bands to make it big. This is among the reasons Chris Mond, Chief Operating Officer of Mushroom Group, cites in the campaign to remove a cap on how much radio stations pay labels to play Australian music. The current cap is 1% of revenue, which was set into law in the late 1960s. It's a very tough time for Australian artists and Australian labels. So we've got to make sure that we are getting every cent that we are due. And that's just not happening with respect to the use of our music on radio, Mr. Mond said. I'm very worried. Mushroom was founded by the late Michael Gudinski in 1972 and is one of Australia's biggest independent labels. On Thursday, Mond will join others in the music sector and commercial radio CEOs before a Senate committee into whether the cap should go. The lobbying battle has already grown heated amid claims of a smear campaign. The 1% cap is not the full picture of how much radio stations pay to play music. There are two separate fees, one covering the songwriters and another covering the recording artist. They are not always the same. The radio industry's peak body, commercial radio and audio, has argued it pays $40 million across both fees, which is about 5% of its annual revenue. Radio revenue has fallen 16% since 2019, it added. Removing the cap would have a devastating impact on local radio, and combined with a government quota to play at least 25% Australian music, could give labels leverage to demand huge payments, the CRA said. Stations don't pay to play music from abroad. If the cap goes, Australian music quotas should also go, CRA Chief Executive Ford Ennals has argued. It is also unclear where the millions currently paid go, radio networks say, claiming 90% goes not to artists but to multinational record labels Universal, Sony and Warner. Mond, a board member of the Australian Recording Industry Association, says Mushroom splits revenue from radio networks 50-50 with its artists. For these recordings to exist, there needs to be investment in those artists, he said. Who's providing the investment to have the recordings exist in the first place? The labels are providing that. So we need to get a return on our investment as well. When it comes to a split between labels and artists, 50-50 is a pretty decent return. If it doesn't go well, the artist doesn't pay off, we have to cover it all. Mushroom has 7 labels, 50 staff, and spends $14 million a year on 60 Australian artists. But that has been declining since streaming became the main way people consume music and TikTok became the way songs are discovered. That changes the economics of labels, Mond said.
We are almost wholly reliant on streaming income now. The record industry is like a speed economy. There are the labels and the artists with massive catalogue, where times have never been better. But then you've got the new artists and the labels that are investing in new artists, and it's never been tougher for them. The radio stations and caps are not the answer to these macro problems, Mond concedes, but they are something. You're going to fight for every cent you do wherever it is. Anyone would do that. This is not the only battle, but it is a battle which is worth fighting for. Look at the percentage radio stations are paying for their talent.